Right. Next, we're gonna have a look at the listening. So, listening is not so hard, at least not the first parts. The last part is quite hard. So, let's see that when the time comes. But first, you see here this kind of audio test. Yeah, if you click here, you will listen to these guys saying to adjust the volume. So nothing special. And yeah, as always, this is what you see in the exam, but just after you have already filled your password and username. So yeah, as you can see, there are several parts here, 4 parts, and the audio is automatically playing here. You don't have to do anything. So even if you cannot hear it in this recording, but it started playing as soon as this screen popped up. And here you listen to different audios and you have to decide the right answer. What might be difficult about this is that sometimes these none of these actually seem to fit in what they request of you. So sometimes or often none of them seems to be like a very clear answer to the question, but one is better than the rest. So just pay attention to what they say and it shouldn't be too difficult. But in this part is or might be ambiguous at times, so you need to be careful with that. But by the second time that the recording plays, everything should be clear enough. You shouldn't have much problems with this. Well, again, you see that there is a timer here, but you don't have to worry because in this case the timer is matched with the audio. So, and as far as I remember they allowed you some extra minutes at some points of this part to complete what you missed. One thing that is important about the listening and might be challenging if you're not used to it. Well, I would say that you never quite get used to that, but the hardest thing of it all is that you have to a certain point to be able to read and listen at the same time, so your mind needs to be in 2 different places doing 2 different things and still try to make sense of both at the same time. So that's the most challenging part of listening. And as the exercise goes on and you reach the last parts, the amount of things that you need to keep in memory get to a high amount. So you need to be very careful with everything and pay a lot of attention and be ready to be put to the test. I mean, don't expect this to be easy because it's not. It doesn't matter how good your understanding is, it doesn't matter at all that you can understand everything. This is not only about understanding, it is especially about being able to carry a lot of information at once in your mind and be able to process it on the fly. So don't think that just because you can follow a movie or a TV series and you understand everything, this is going to be easy, because that's not the point of this exercise. It is not to prove that you understand things, but that you can keep a lot of information in your head and manage it correctly. This is probably the easiest part because you follow what they say, and you have to fill some gaps with some keywords that they will mention at some point. So it is very obvious when or which word you have to write here. This is not difficult at all. So bunch of questions about this same topic. So they are ordered in the same fashion as they appear in the narration, so don't be scared by this. This is the easiest part. Part 3. So you hear a discussion between two people, and here you have, yeah, so they discuss on different topics, and at the end of each sub-discussion they reach to some agreement, or well, they usually disagree, but there is one who wins this argument, and you have to answer like the final conclusion that they reach. So this is not so difficult. You just need to understand the nuances of the communication between these two guys, because sometimes, yeah, they're going to give opposing views on something, and your task is to decide who has the strongest point or argument, so who wins on each mini discussion. Again, nothing very special. There is not much that you can do to prepare for this specific exercise. Just understand everything, have a good listening ability, and yeah, just make sense of the information that they give you, and a little of common sense to decide who got the best point. Even when sometimes they don't overtly disagree, but there is always one guy that like that owns the other, and the other isn't able to retort. So that's it. And this is by far the hardest part. And what's worse is that, well, worse or best, the thing is that this is the last thing that you're gonna do during the exam session, because the speaking will be at a different time, but you reach this point after having done the writing, the use of English, and the reading, and all the previous listening exercises. So by now, be ready to be very tired after 3 hours or so, mentally exhausted, and challenged with this thing, which is very confusing. I have to admit that I hadn't prepared for this. Actually, I didn't go through many exams from previous years or anything, and the ones I had were of a different format. They were like handwritten exams and very old, so I think this exercise wasn't like this, or at least it wasn't quite similar. Or maybe it was, and I just didn't prepare for it. But I was taken aback by it when I was doing the exam. There was a point that I went blank, and I didn't know what was going on. Like, I missed some of the conversation, and then when I realized I had missed some answers, and I really didn't write anything until the second run of the recording. So I didn't really know what happened. I guess I was very tired, and as soon as I realized, I had missed my first chance to feel anything. So I had to do everything in the second run of the recording, and that is very risky. So here you listen to 5 different people talking about one thing, one same topic, and each of them gives like their opinions on 2 different views or 2 different aspects of that thing. So here they are talking about doing an internship, and for task 1 you have to choose the reason for choosing the internship, and for task 2 you have to choose the list what expected experience each speaker had during their internship. Okay, whatever. I remember that the one I did in the exam was about jobs and job interviews. So each person first, as far as I remember, they first give you advice on what to do during a job interview, and also then they tell you about some mistake that they did in their job interview. So both questions related to job interviews, but they cover 2 different aspects. First, they advise you, and then they tell you something that they did wrong. Now, what is difficult about this is that sometimes some people tell you one thing first and then the other. Like they give you the answer for task 1 first and then for task 2, but some others do the opposite. They first give you the information that you need to answer task 2 first, and then they cover task 1. So you need to pay a lot of attention for this. And then talking to some other people that were at the exam room with me, they mentioned a strategy that can be useful for this. I didn't realize at the time, but could have helped me. So you guys may want to consider it. And it is to just focus on answer task 1 first in the first run of the recording, and try to get them all, and then just focus on task 2. So you will hear each person saying something, but only care about what concerns task 1 first. And once they are all done, do the same thing but just for task 2. Forget about what they say for relevant for task 1, and only be concerned about what they say relevant for task 2. So you do that, you will have the risk of just listening to or just focusing on each task once, but each time you will do it better, probably because you have more time to yeah to put your mind on the appropriate question just for one part. So you have to keep half of the information in your head at the same time. What I said before about listening being difficult because you have to keep a lot of information in your head at once, especially suitable for this part, because here you are listening to them talk, and at the same time you have to keep in mind all these how many 8 or 9 questions, and you need to be aware of each of them and choose whichever is the best for that speaker. If you try to do both tasks at once, so you have 2 chances to do it because the recording is played twice, but for each of those you want to have 16 different answers at the same time, and considering that sometimes they answer first task 1 and sometimes they don't, then you're probably not going to be able to deal with so many information at once, and it all goes very fast. I missed some of the speakers in the first time, So I think it's a good idea to try to separate both tasks and at least reduce by half the amount of work that you have to do. So that's up to you, but it's surely a good idea. Alright guys, I'll talk to you about the speaking later. See you.